All right, good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Today is March 28th. We don't have an agenda right now because it really isn't too much. So Charlie, what you got?
Yeah, before we send it over to Cara from the Hart Ellsworth to do her presentation today, the finance team and some others that have been just putting in an insane amount of hours. You received an email 2 minutes ago. My typical schedule sent just a huge thanks to this team. Sometimes I think it can be a bit thankless to be penny pinching and hurting every department head and the city manager and the city council's wants and needs and timeframes and the school's piece, and to get an 800-page, extremely transparent public budget up that's fiscally responsible. A very difficult task, especially considering the 5 years that you all had to make up for last year to kind of get this back in shape. So I know we're not there yet. We have a ton of changes. I think that's what I love about this finance team is it's a standard of excellence. I think that kind of sets the bar for the organization. So thank you to the team. I've got a million action items from from last night's meetings. I think that we have clarity on schedule, final alignment with the school when they'll come in, a pretty reasonable amount of time to do our nonprofits and social services presentations, to wrap up meetings with the council and kind of where we're at and where the tax rate's at based on the school side, based on the city side, maybe some options if we want to go lower, maybe some options if some recommendations from the council want to go up in a few places. So it feels like we're in good shape there and looking forward to next steps.
Excellent.
Should we send it over to
Anything
Connor?
from finance?
Nothing too pressing. Obviously, working with RHR, they're actually helping us get the beginning balances corrected with Cassell. I think I mentioned that last week. So I should see something, I'm hoping today, but like I told Cassell, we're going to send it over that because that's what the issue they're having right now with the 24 audit. So just to give you an update on that. The PUC report, I'm sure, Tammy, you remember it's due April 1st. We requested an extension, so we have that till May 1st. So that's obviously something Ashley and myself we're very excited to work on because we love the PUC report and we'll make sure we get that done. But those are the two big things. Obviously, the budget book is getting that across the finish line, like Charlie said, is our goal. And we will work tirelessly, because we have been, to get that done. But that's all I have, unless Ashley has anything. And otherwise, we'll send it over to Cara or whoever.
Yeah. Cara, are you ready?
Yeah.
Good morning.
I'll turn off my camera so I'm not standing behind you.
Oh, you're very sweet, Nate, thanks. My name is Cara Romano. I'm the director of Hart of Ellsworth. Here this morning for more of a discussion than a presentation, just a friendly amendment to the intro on that. Just trying to have a conversation about how Hart of Ellsworth supports the city and a sustainable way for our support and our partnership with the city, and also sort of how projects get funded and in a way that could be a little bit more sustainable long-term for our organization as well as for the city. There's been a lot of changes that have happened over the course of the past year. And as a new Main Street community, we've learned a lot of things on our side, and there's also been a lot of changes on the city side. So we're hopeful and urging council and city staff to consider funding Hart of Ellsworth, consider funding Hart of Ellsworth through TIF district funding, because we've been doing a lot of research and have found that a lot of Main Street communities around the state, with which, to our understanding, it's 10 of them that are, or I'm sorry, 9 of them, so that are funded through TIF districts. 2 of them are not. So just to give a little window into those communities, and ones mostly that are either population-wise and perhaps sort of geographically where they're located, make a lot of sense for Ellsworth to kind of think about as sort of maybe mirror communities, for lack of a better word. So Belfast, Augusta, Westbrook, Bath, Saco, Gardner, and Rockland, they do utilize TIF funding to bolster their Main Street programs, meaning those towns use that to support their Main Street programs. And a lot of times, they underscore these contributions under sort of the, or in the buckets, I guess I could say, of business attraction, workforce development, place-based economic growth, and a lot of these things are sort of essential in where Ellsworth is going and connect back and loop back to the comprehensive plan and the business attraction plan. So we've sort of been looking at the categorization of a lot of the projects that we're working on right now on behalf of the city, and they all sort of connect to both the comprehensive plan and the business attraction plan. And if council is interested, I've actually gone through both of those plans and have picked out each of the, either of the objectives or the goals or the, there was another word that was used that I'm forgetting right now. That was, oh, I wish I could remember. Here it is. That connects back to the principles that were from the comprehensive plan and then the pieces from the business attraction plan. So we've sort of kind of made a nice graph grid that I can sort of email if you folks are interested in seeing that. And all of these projects link back to getting the boxes checked for those items that have been identified by the city as part of the city's work plan moving forward. So I didn't know if there was some more ideas or conversation or questions, or if you folks want to see more in-depth research from other communities. We were able to get a couple of towns and communities to talk to us and to give us some graphs about how their TIF districts and their town support their downtowns. And so we've reached out to and received information back from Old Town, Bath, and Gardner. And so all of that sort of stuff is kind of in a folder, and I'm happy to share that with staff or with council if that's of interest. But again, just looking for a little bit more conversation on this as we move into the next week.
A few questions, Cara. So one, yeah, I think any of that information, feel free to share with the council and staff. I'd be interested in seeing it. As far as, I guess, can you give us an overview of how you think the Heart of Ellsworth mission aligns with, using TIF funding as, maybe some examples of this work with, something along just for us and then the public that's listening?
Sure. So what we did was we actually took the lovely revised application for support for outside organizations that this finance department created this year, which was really a tremendous amount of work. I've been doing these presentations and requests to the city for almost a decade now, and it's kind of gone through a bunch of iterations. And this year, the packet was very comprehensive, and it was so much easier and more clear to understand what they want from us. And so they created, as you guys probably remember, the work element, the amount of the request, and then the expected deliverables. So nice work, you guys. Sorry, Nate, you're not on there to see. And then also the population benefited. So what we did was we went through each of the projects that we're working on.
Nate just.
Oh.
He came with a big smile.
His timing again, I know he's really great with timing. Sometimes he can say nothing at all, but yeah. So some of the work elements, to give you an example, Councilor Lyons, was our destination marketing plan that we're working on with city support. We're through that, it's a lot about destination management and wayfinding signage planning. And so the idea is that once this tourism plan is completed, this will help with wayfinding and gateway signage concept designs, highlighting attractions in the city, as well as marketing Ellsworth to younger audiences, which all three of those things loop back to comprehensive plan and business attraction plan. Beautification, which the city works on tirelessly, as well as Heart of Ellsworth, and now it's starting to be in tandem, which is really exciting. So again, some of those sort of outcomes or expected deliverables are assisting with the Franklin Street Parklet, which was part of the business attraction plan, as well as the comp plan, and also welcoming and inviting, having a welcoming and inviting downtown for visitors and residents, seasonal trees on Main Street, all of those things we work on in tandem with Riverwalk North was also an identified piece, and we're working on an engineering plan for the trailhead with Frenchman Bay Conservancy and the Ellsworth Public Library. Directly, the Ellsworth Public Library, as many of you know here, are in need of that retaining wall replacement and back parking lot. And so these plans that we've received grant dollars for are directly supporting the city. Of course, the engineering plan is going to have city staff members that are a part of working with the engineers that Frenchman Bay Conservancy, Heart of Ellsworth, and the Ellsworth Public Library are hiring. And then that plan will be gifted to the city and then the city doesn't have to pay for that. The historic designation of the downtown district, again, sort of supports prioritizing affordable housing and also year-round economy and robust tourism economy. And then the inventory of commercial spaces, which was an identified item in the business attraction plan, as well as downtown hotel and diversification of housing supply. So again, some of the historic designation piece by Heart of Ellsworth working on that with the Historic Preservation Commission, which is a city commission, as well as a couple of area residents who are local experts in historic preservation. That's going to ready the city for investment and in the downtown buildings that need a lot of repair. Also loops back with all of the facade grant work that the city was able to secure to pass on to building owners. And this also long-term readies our city for historic tax credits that will benefit investors who come in, purchase buildings in the downtown district, the proposed historic district, and then perhaps adaptive reuse will start to happen and downtown will have more people living in it, then hence more economic drivers happening. Community events, free summer concerts, all of these, they touch on three different parts of the three parts of the comp plan, and then 2 parts of the business attraction plan. The small business support that Heart of Ellsworth does, we had our downtown grants award ceremony the other night, and again, the news came and did a nice piece, but all of those pieces, when people are considering where do I want to move my business and where is their support, all of these things kind of add up. People think about Ellsworth, and so this is going to attract new businesses to move to the district through funding opportunities, whether they be through the city's facade grant or be through programs like our Bricks and Clicks program or our downtown grants program. Marketing the district, that's another one that also touches on a lot of points of both of the business attraction plan and comp plan. The makerspace that we've been working on the past couple of years, that hits on 4 different parts of the comp plan, and downtown workspace, makerspace was an identified item 3 in the business attraction plan. And that's sort of touches on that whole piece of a creative hub with, and complementing the Union River Center for Innovation and the goals of the business attraction plan and comp plan. And then the last one that we sort of put together that's kind of like an underlying kind of grounding element, learning opportunity, is attendance at the Main Street America Conference. And that supports all the points that I just said above for both business attraction plan and the comp plan. And this year, we're super excited to have a staff person a person from the city that is going to join us. And just yesterday, we all sort of worked together to pick out what tracks of the conference so that we could make the most of our experience together there. So that was really a great meeting. So, long-winded answer, sorry.
That's
but
it? That's all you guys are working on?
That's it. Well, there's other things, but they don't touch necessarily on points from, I'm sure they do, but,
Great. No, that's very helpful. Thank you.
I do have a few. One's kind of just some operational pieces I'd love to see some more data on. Is just I loved hearing about the different main downtowns that the 10 that were funded, the 2 that were not. The 10 that are funded, if you could just get kind of like a graph with the towns, how much TIF funding they receive, like what type, maybe a little bit of information on like which type of structure they're operating under. Is it considered like a quasi? Is a member of the city council on the board? Do they have kind of what's their reporting structure type things? I think one of the things I found interesting in Ellsworth and city government, different from state government and federal government, and I think a lot of other cities and towns across America, I guess it's more type of Maine, is like the investment of cities in nonprofits and social services, which I think is essentially illegal in other states. You're not allowed to use taxpayer money on specific organizations because it can create issues of fairness and, yes. So to me, there's like a piece of like, if I had my druthers, we'd just go to a big tax credit for everybody, Ellsworth approved. And the fear is, you start, and I kind of see this, it becomes like a subsidization without like an accountability mechanism at the other end of the line. And if you're going towards more TIF too, yes, you could go in and out, but like it rarely happens. Here's your level, here's what it's at. It's for these kind of general services. So if we were going to go to kind of a new structure for increased investment from the city, at least me personally, and couldn't obviously speak for the council, I'd want to consider it more like a quasi, or what we, like the pay for success model, which I've employed in Mass state government. There's, we did this for a workforce career center where we wanted to increase English as a second language. It's a huge multiplier effect when you make those kinds of investments. But if it's working out, great, we want to fund it. There's specific benchmarks in success, clearly defined outcomes, how the data decision driven is making, outcomes-based performance, strong governance and accountability, and for like new tasks, right? Not just for like, you're doing awesome as an organization, we want to keep supporting you, we'll give you more funding. It's, here's our task environment as a city or as a state, or any kind of entity. This is something that we don't have the current capacity to really hit our marks on, and this organization may be better suited to help kind of do that. Beautification, river walk between the marina and the downtown. I've got hundreds and hundreds of things, and the comp plan, these other pieces. So how would we set up a system for additional funding and a TIF kind of dedicated that kind of has a governance structure that monitors those tax dollars in the same way that we do in these city council meetings. And B, can be accountable year to year, and we can say, okay, like it's not just a $40,000, a $60,000, an $80,000, $100,000 subsidy forever. It's based on specific deliverables, outcomes that the city is essentially contracting for. That's kind of my druthers as I consider this, but I don't know enough about how quasis work in municipalities. I know in Massachusetts, there was, the cities and towns, sometimes they would have like a business entity that was funded like that. There was private money, there was public money. They had a whole structure for investing in their downtowns at a pretty significant level, but it was a public-private donor, public money kind of partnership for very specific things. So that's kind of a few of mine. And then the pieces, we're having a new econ dev director likely come in, so just, how that reporting structure would work, how do you align on those pieces. I just so thankful for the work Hart Ellsworth does, and really excited to bring on that person and kind of continue that partnership. I think it'll be really beneficial. But yeah, those are my thoughts.
Yeah, and I think that makes a lot of sense, if we're going to, consider and make that kind of investment in Heart of Ellsworth with TIF funding, making sure that the city is, has that, that accountability, but also it's at the same, it's accountability, but it's also like cooperation and communication, right? And maybe there, what does that look like? And I think it's a good question. How are these other towns doing it? But, we can also like, what do we think that should look like, right? And, with the new econ dev, maybe it's, I don't know with that structure, and, if they're like a liaison board member of the Heart of Ellsworth, something like that, where there's, that we kind of entrenched more, and then we entrusting public funds with Heart of Ellsworth because we think there's value there. We've seen the work you've done, but the kind of annual reporting, accountability, and I think that all, if we're going to do that, we want to make sure we do it right, and it's I think there's opportunity there, but it sounds like. Yeah, I'd like to see these other community successes they've had, and what is that? How do those partnerships look?
Yeah. And we are in a new, thanks to the work Tammy and Michelle did in setting up the original TIFs, we're at a kind of a reimagining, thanks to some debt service falling off. Something like this obviously would, I think, definitely take a amendment to the TIF.
I don't think so.
So this could be directly pulled over.
Yep.
Interesting. So increasing funding to a quasi or a separate entity for economic development related beautification, that type purposes. But you couldn't do that internally with a staff hire.
We can talk, are you talking like recreation, that sort of thing?
Yeah, well, like that's a lot of the
Like-
activities we'd be subsidizing are in that same category as like, parks, recreation, community engagement, arts, investments in the downtown, investments in other, so I'm just curious as to why you can, which might be unique, if you can use a TIF in that, basically contracting with a third-party entity to do those types of things, but you can't necessarily be with the staff member that's like a Parks and Rec director or culture, community engagement director. That's my other piece too, is we have a huge task environment, a comp plan, a business attraction plan, a housing needs assessment, and there's one person in economic development, and but there are a lot of organizations that kind of scale that side through these types of entities as opposed to internally, so I'd want to think about that more too.
Just a couple of responses to your statement. So most of these towns, it's my understanding from having monthly director roundtable discussions that we have with all the other executive directors of Main Street organizations around the state, and also the annual conference, I've developed relationships with a lot of these other executive directors. And from my understanding, the nonprofits that are in Heart of Ellsworth's shoes around the state, the ones that are high functioning have like a symbiotic relationship with their city, and specifically with their econ dev department head. So to that, with both of those entities working lock and step, I think their municipalities are sort of perceiving the nonprofit as an extension of staff. So they're partnering, they're working together, and there are always, with these high-functioning relationships, memorandums of understanding. And we've never had that with the city of Ellsworth. We've never been asked to do that. But I can speak for the board that the board is more than willing, meaning the Heart of Ellsworth board is more than willing to work through a memorandum of understanding or whatever sort of type of contract, we would have, and to switch to more of a clear year-to-year contract that would be reviewed and created, by the city, with also forecasting what's on the horizon that the city is going to be working on, because we as a nonprofit do have the ability to go after funds that the city can't go after, and vice versa. So if we were more on the same page as each other and we were working year over year together and we were being considered as an extension of staff, that supports, especially a city of our size, it really supports one person in a one-person department. That allows them to sort of have work to keep moving along, and for them to sort of help us with what it is and making sure that what we're doing is beneficial and that we're doing it the right way. And for me, as a staff person of Heart of Ellsworth, that kind of clarity and that kind of relationship is sort of what I have been longing for, I would say, for easily a decade. And so it would make my work a lot easier if we had that kind of understanding of, and clarity and trust and all of that. I think it's just, and I think it's great for the city. And there are also many samples of memorandums of understanding. I can reach out to the Main Downtown Center to get those, just so that you can have some sort of idea of what some of these other towns, and I can also call on some of the other executive directors, and maybe they'll just share them with me as well. We are going to the conference, next week. So it's a great time, and I can also look through the track of learning opportunities with Jeremy Smith, and to see if there is anything that's specifically about this, meaning if there are any breakout sessions or conference sessions that could also help us to attend. I didn't see any yesterday, but doesn't mean that they're not there.
It's interesting. There's one aspect, like, yeah, you could resources internally through the staff, but also that's like a big upswing to that, right? You gotta find the right people, you gotta find this. The value of Heart of Ellsworth and their board and their staff that's here already, in investing that way towards specific definable things is just scalability, ease. And to hear kind of the MOU piece, you could almost set up a structure of like kind of boards coming together in some way. There's some sort of council and HOE, here's our, we're doing some strategic planning after this. Here's our task environment. These like 7 to 10 things that we really want to do. That are going to take a ton of project management and deliverables and timelines. And of course, the Heart of Ellsworth board have all their things they want to do, but kind of align on those for the year. Fund it out, and would probably fast track a lot of just really helpful things for the city.
Absolutely.
And if there's already kind of mechanisms and clear state guidance on economic development tests being used for this purpose, I do like that. It'll obviously create conflict because you're going to have two organizations with, in some ways, different entities going towards, but that's, everybody loves Ellsworth, so I don't feel like that would be an issue.
It also creates synergy.
Yes.
Um,
And have a symbiotic relationship.
Yes. Charlie, can you finish the sentence that you just said about, you didn't finish it, it was about kind of going after, and I think you might be saying same funding sources? Was that?
No, I was just thinking, melding the kind of different, the vision of the Heart of Ellsworth boards,
Okay.
obviously, with council requests and what this funding's going towards, and that to me would be the kind of thing that would come together and help us not have to hire out additional staff here, work with the econ dev director on those pieces without having to scale up internally, and also from a pay for success sort of MOU model, have the accountability mechanisms for year to year to say, hey, are we getting what we're paying for the city? Is it aligned to our purposes? Are the outcomes were they delivered? Just the way we do with all of our other items that we work on. And so we can say, hey, this isn't working out, let's pull back. Like solid waste.
So we are, after we get back from the Main Street Conference in May, the Heart of Ellsworth Board is going through its strategic planning. We haven't done strategic planning since 2019. And we last year were supposed to do it, but we decided to focus on the Main Street America status for the city of Ellsworth, and that was, I think, a smart move. And so now that we have that, we're able to sort of go into strategic planning. And I think that will be really helpful to perhaps have someone from the city a part of that, so that as we are figuring out sort of our next, 2 to 5 year plan, that we're making sure that whatever it is that the city's kind of has up and coming after this up and coming fiscal year, further down the road, that we are making sure that we are having those goals in mind. And so typically, what also happens is a lot of times, a lot of these cities have the economic development director or someone from council a part of the Heart of Ellsworth board. We now have that in new councilor White, who is sort of counselor and also on the Heart of Ellsworth board. But in a perfect world, we would also have the economic development director being part of committees, but maybe even part of the board, or someone from the finance department, just somebody, whoever it makes sense. But that's really, when you've got that sort of matriculation, it's like, it's hard for things to kind of go sidestep, it's like everybody's kind of at all the meetings, and our work is doing right by the city and helping the city achieve its goals. So that would also be something that I know the Heart of Ellsworth board would be open to, even though I'm just bringing that up now.
Yeah, you don't come into any issues with RFPing if you're doing an MOU like that, as opposed to being like, hey, Heart of Ellsworth could do this, but could the YMCA, could the Grand, could another, nonprofit, do you have to, or is it the city's kind of allowed to use TIF for a downtown association like this and just kind of really go into an MOU and?
I'll have to look at the document again, but it does identify a downtown district, but I know it's not a district, but I think that.
And that might be something these other organizations can answer in 2 seconds, Cara, I'm sure.
Can you ask that question again?
If we're doing kind of an MOU, pay for success, we'd like to have these types of things done. There's plenty of, not plenty, but there are organizations that could do that. I think Heart of Ellsworth is uniquely suited as the city's downtown association, a track record of doing all these things. I can't imagine another organization could do these types of things. But when it comes to a general contract, if we were going to go with 50, 80, any kind of, you'd want to see what's out there for it.
Absolutely, and you can even, I think, tag it for specific projects that the city and the Heart of Ellsworth are kind of working on
Right.
together, and making sure we have that relationship that I feel like the city definitely needs to be part of it, though.
Yeah.
So,
I think do we have a responsibility to put it out kind of to bid under that umbrella of, kind of our following our guidelines on if we do this type of work with a partner or vendor.
Right.
For a paving contract, right? We put that out to bid. Do we need to do that here, or can we just
Right.
go into that? Yeah, I don't know my instincts are, I think in this situation, we can just partner with them, but it's it's always best to make sure we're following proper procedure. And then, yeah, and if that's a requirement, you know, we could reach out, but I think what Charlie said is I would anticipate there might be just one organization that could do all this, and their director is at the podium, so.
Right.
Well, I will just, again, just say that if the city for some reason or other finds out that an RFP is the route you have to go, we would apply.
Yeah.
It would make a lot of, perhaps maybe, on our end, a lot of unnecessary work. However, if that's the process and that's best practice, we'll do it. But I certainly will be spending my time to find out how other communities have dealt with this, because it's a great question. And I just am excited to learn, so.
And that's why you might be able to paper over this with like the quasi nature, which is, and there's a seat on the board for the council and a economic development director, and there's a blankety blank, and it's kind of, that's built into the process. There's accountability. You're not just hiring a vendor
Yeah.
to do, it's like, sure, we'll pave your road as a sole source, but also like, we're now on the board of your company and blah, blah. Like to be like, no, it's a very different type of engagement.
absolutely.
Yeah, and if each year we are finding that deliverables are not being met, then the following year, it is what it is. It's just like any other business relationship.
Yeah, and I've found that that kind of accountability, if structured well, like, is the right kind of accountability that gets you the deliverables by a timeline. Yeah. And you're right, and if it's not working out, like, it can change pretty quickly.
Excellent.
Is there any other, so I'm leaving today with the direction to share with council some of the research that we've done with other towns. And Charlie, I believe you specifically asked for sort of a graph for TIFs examples from other towns around the state, which that's easy to do. And I also will be looking into RFPs from other towns, if that structure has ever been employed. And I think that's sort of everything. Right?
I think so.
Okay.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Cara.
Thanks,
you,
Carl.
guys.
We'll see you next Thursday. 3 minutes.
Don't worry. After this, I'm happy for 3 minutes.
All right. Anyone from the public that would like to speak? Anyone from staff? Okay, come on up.
Morning, Jared Wilbur, resident. First, want to start off with saying super stoked on how far we've come on getting our budget up early, to be able to see spreadsheets on the screen last night with actual numbers and stuff this early. Sorry. It is like, it's awesome. Obviously these guys have been working hard, and, it's just great, because sometimes, like, when you go into the vote, you don't really know, and like you guys were talking about last night, it always seems like it's one-sided, you're gonna cut from the municipality to make the budget work because of this and that. Obviously, the budget reflects stuff, I guess you call it deferred maintenance or deferred projects or however, that's been getting kicked down the road because we've had to cut to make certain numbers meet. So going into that, looking at the numbers for the school board versus the municipality last night, you see like a 0.2% increase on the municipal side, and then on the school side you see with 6.7% increase. And I'm not saying that the school doesn't need certain things. Obviously we need books, we need to be able to provide a good education for the students in the area. One of the things when I was listening to the meeting that I kind of was a little bit miffed about is we were talking, and it kind of got hit on last night, about possibly pulling the vans, I believe they were $90,000 or something as purchase, and moving those into the lease, which would then possibly lower down that line item a little bit. But when we were talking about transportation, well, not we, but when you guys were talking about transportation, you were talking about the purchase of two school buses, one at, I think, 125 and the other one at like 129. And there was a comment made that these buses are obsolete, done. And I guess, like, what is the life expectancy of these buses? Are we just like 8 years? Are we just done? Is that when we just have to retire them? Because, you know, or is it that we hit a certain mileage and then we have to go and purchase new ones? Because I feel like in this town, there's taxpayers that have to run trucks with 400,000 miles. So for them to all of a sudden have to run their equipment longer, but then have to pay the bill to keep new shiny buses in the depot. I mean, I don't know the situation. I'm just kind of inquiring to see, like, what are we, is it a mileage thing that we're cutting these off with, a year thing? Or is there actually catastrophic failure in these motors or whatnot, and they can't be replaced? And another thing I didn't understand, so the buses, if we purchase them, are we trading these other two buses in to offset the cost of those buses? Or are we just gonna keep them, so then all of a sudden we have two more backup buses? I guess that was just kind of a question.
I think, yeah, that you'd need to contact the school department, because we're just like yeah, so maybe an email to, I mean, it is great questions, and, but maybe an email to the superintendent.
Yeah, I know they have their own budget processes. They're going to have that meeting. I think thanks to the school board, we're switching to the 15th as well. So I'd encourage you to, and to Tammy's point, we did discuss that meeting to kind of touch more base on the lease cycle. There's, not that I have a lot of expertise here, but I'm through that lease process, and we're thinking about this thing called Fleetio with the city side too, so we can, one of the reasons we went to enterprise, we see the data, you see how you manage the fleets, but for the bigger things, like we can't lease a fire truck, we can't, from enterprise, or, I'm assuming the school bus is kind of in a similar category. It's a larger capital expense. But that doesn't mean that you can't use better data for how that capital purchase is made. Are we purchasing it outright? Would you want to potentially think about it bonding for it, and then having, doing it that way with it very, at that level, that might not be quite high enough for that, especially if there's some capital aspects, but happy to talk to Amy more. I know that school is continuing to look. Amy called me about the lease piece, and if maybe they can get that down. To Tammy's point, I don't have a lot of expertise in school bus area side of things, and I know one of the nice things about the lease program too is you can kind of maximize the value of that asset. So, it's always hard to tell. Do you just drive it into the ground until it's totally rusted out? And like, there's that strategy, and then there's a strategy of every 3 years keeping your asset to an area, and enterprise kind of swaps it out and has more of a mathematical keep the value of that asset, and here's your lease cycle. So definitely something the school, I'm happy to talk to Amy more about for you, Jared.
Okay.
But please reach out as well.
I understood it as there's some, I don't know what it is, but some regulation or requirement that buses can't operate after either a certain amount of years or a certain amount of miles, and that wasn't
interesting.
clear to me, Jared, and I'd be interested in just knowing what that requirement is, and, is it a state, is it a federal requirement? But my understanding is those buses have hit some number that, some entities saying you can't run them anymore, but I'd be interested in knowing more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just curious, because I was like, well, what is it? And like you said, like, what's the stopping point? Should we be, if you're looking 2 to 5 years out, and we guesstimate how many miles we're putting on a year, should we be taking a bus that goes out to Green Lake, and maybe keep turning that into an in-town bus if it's a mileage thing, to try to keep the miles down? Maybe we can get another couple of years to defer the capital or the cost down on something like that.
I believe they are, isn't it them, they're purchasing software to help with
Yes.
maximizing?
Yes, that was the other thing that I
Yeah.
saw,
Yeah.
and I definitely think that that's a good piece of equipment to have in those, to obviously, one, keep the parents in the loop on when they're coming, but maximize the mileage and making sure, all that sort of stuff. So I do think that's a critical thing. I just look at the busing, every part of that budget, you know, there's different things, but I feel like the busing part is important, but it's also a large cost, you know,
Oh.
obviously, in that whole deal.
Yeah, and I also, there was a lot of loose talk last night on the electric fleet.
Not for me.
And just like to clarify that I'm for electric cars when fiscally appropriate and recommended by Enterprise, and very much not for them when they are not. The school bus is a great example. I mean, I'd love someday for an electric school bus to be able to service an area the size of Ellsworth. But even in Castine, like they did that, they got a big grant for it. I think it was paid out like outright. And they had to give the bus back because like it won't make it in Castine. Like it just, in the wintertime, like they weren't quite sure that they'd be able to do the full loop and do the 2 trips on one charge in January with, you know. So I imagine Ellsworth, that problem would be magnified 100-fold.
We might get out a half a mile of the Bangor
So
Road.
maybe in 2060. But no worries, there's no electric school buses coming.
One other thing that I'd like to hit on before I sit down is, you know, looking at the initial numbers, obviously what we, those are the finals. You know, we have the nonprofits and them coming up, which will obviously fluctuate those numbers. You know, and if you're talking about a 2.9% increase off the numbers that were shown last night, I think it was somewhere around like $450,000, $500,000 that need to be cut to make that, and that wouldn't be taken into consideration any of the nonprofit donations that would be going out. So when you take a large property and you say that property is assessed, just for easy math, at $10 million, and you add a 5% just straight across the board assessment value to that, and then you take on top of that and you add your 2.9% mill rate increase, you know, on what, you know, we used to say a normal house in Ellsworth was $200,000. Well, there isn't $200,000. You go on Zillow or whatever, there isn't a $200,000 house in Ellsworth for sale. Anyways, where I was going with this is, you know, you could say, oh, well, that's a $400 increase on a residential house, but on these large commercial properties, that's a huge chunk of change. And, you know, over the past 8 to 10 years, there's been a lot of, not a lot, but there's been a few businesses that have come and appealed. And I feel like at a certain point, once those numbers get to a certain point, more of the bigger corporations might be coming in to appeal, which then could turn you into a shortfall on the budget if you have to pay back and this and that. A lot of these ones were denied their appeal for lack of showing all the correct document needed to go all the way forward to the state board. But, you know, I wouldn't put it past some of them to actually provide all the documentation needed to have the, it go forward when you hit a certain price. Because when you're taking, and you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, you know, $70,000, $80,000 it might cost to fight it, to lock in, might be worth some of their time. And I'm not, I just want to put it out there, you know, when you take somebody and they're paying a large portion, and then you're hitting them with impact fees and this and that, but then you're subsidizing or investing in certain other areas, but you're not really subsidizing or investing in those areas. It really kind of, you know. But anyways, that's my rant. Thank you, guys. You have
Thank
a
you,
great
Jared,
day.
appreciate it.
No worries, thanks, Jared. Yeah, and I think you're gonna love the budget calculator once, there's one part of me that kind of wants to put that online to kind of help people gamify.
Yeah, I think that'd be great. Okay.
You want to try and get this, like, you know, let me know. But again, because we're so public and transparent, like, we're only allowed to gamify one side of the budget, so there's a danger there as well. But yeah, great points. I think we'll have a discussion with council about valuation increase, you know, how that affects the mill rate. And I think for the public too, it'll be good to go with. So, and you'll be able to see in that calculator, Jared, all right, if we have a property that's worth $2 million at a 2% valuation increase, what's the mill rate based on a you said 2.9%, we're at 3.9% now. The target, at least internally, is somewhat of a inflationary 2.9%, but should be able to help people do that.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Mr. Gilly? I saw you all getting ready to stand up.
Yeah. So I wrote down some questions I have. Roger Gilly, resident of Ellsworth. I like to watch a meeting because a lot of times, you know, I'm working and can't make it. So one of the questions are, you know, we're talking about leasing vehicles. So my question is, to lease vehicles for the highway department, to me, is a waste of money. And the reason for that is the highway department, they have their vehicles now. Like you said, they drive them into the ground until they have to be sold off as pretty much scrap. You know, if we lease a vehicle, you know, before we can turn that vehicle in, now we're gonna have to take it to the body shop, we're gonna have to fix it, we're gonna have to make it presentable again. And if all the vehicles we have now are all stove up, except for the new ones that we have, what is the point? You know, it's gonna cost us more money in the long run to do a shorter term turnover than we are to have them. And like Jared said, you know, mileage, you know, I have a truck at my house, I'm getting ready to, I give it to my father-in-law and getting ready to put it back on the road for him. It's got 350,000 miles on it. I bought a city truck for $300. I'm gonna fix it and sell it. But I don't know, like 130,000 miles on it and it's a wreck, but it's fixable. You know, so the question is why do we have so many vehicles now that won't take an inspection sticker? We know we have abundance of them. It's a maintenance issue. And if we have a maintenance issue now, who's saying just because we lease a vehicle, we're gonna maintain that one? So therefore, it's more money you're gonna have to put into it in 3 years to turn it back in. The other question is, you know, we talk about this courthouse, you know, and financially, you know, we're asking all the taxpayers to help fund this where we want to put the courthouse in Ellsworth. So basically, you know, we're letting 1,000 residents on the Surrey Road where the state already bought a piece of property and they've okayed it for themselves. So how do you go about telling them that they can't do something? So now it's up to the taxpayers to pay all this money to move this courthouse and build a road. And they said they're gonna use the highway department to build the road. We've had local business people come in here that are in that construction field and said, well, we can't build that road for what you're saying we're gonna build the road for, it just can't. We don't have the crew to do it. They can't maintain what we have now. So to build a road and use our crew that, you know, we're not getting ahead on what we already have going, makes no sense to me. So, you know, we talk about these EVs. I do a lot of work with DCP. They got EVs. Come wintertime, I plow their parking lot. Their EVs never move. A lot of times I shovel out the back of their EVs so they can get them out when I'm done plowing because they just don't move. They physically can't use them in the wintertime unless they run to McDonald's, you know, for lunch. And that's what they tell their people, you know, just take it downtown real quick just to use it. They sit there plugged in all the time. I can't imagine that's really good for them. You know, they say that, you know, one gas-powered car can run for 10 years to fill the footprint of one EV to be made. One EV to be made is 3 gas-powered cars made with the pollution put out there. Not only that, but, you know, we're against miners, you know, working, and we're taking all this lithium for these batteries that it's being dug out of the ground by, you know, children. Doesn't make sense to me. On top of that, you know, the last time I was here, when you were here, Charlie, we talked about the city garage. So we talked about the bathrooms and stuff like that being built. So and the use of the bucket truck. So after I left the meeting, I see 4 of the city employees. So I asked them, you know, about this bucket truck, and they said, well, you know, the truck's still not certified, and we still don't have anybody certified to get in the bucket of the truck. And I said, well, that's a problem. You know, the city's run as a business, it needs to act like a business. Can you go rent a bucket truck? Yes, as a homeowner. Can you get in the bucket as a homeowner? Yes, there's no rule against it. As a business, you know, you need a certification to get in the bucket. You need the truck to be certified. to use it. Charlie said, we're using the truck, that's fine, anybody can drive it with a Class 2 license. But not everybody can get in the bucket, it has to be certified. We talked about the bathrooms. I asked about the bathrooms out there, they said, yeah, we remodeled. I said, okay. I said, well, did you need to? And they said, no, absolutely not. I said, okay. They said on the school bus side, this is what your employees are saying. On the school bus side, they said there was 2 bathrooms already on that side, and they were taking out. So why didn't we put those bathrooms back if they were already there? And they said, I don't know. I said, how did the building go? I said, none of you guys are carpenters. And they said, well, nothing's square, nothing's true, nothing's right. They said, we did what we could do. I said, okay. I said, that's about what I figured. And, you know, and Charlie, you mentioned about you had to, take off a kitchen, because it was $100,000 for this kitchen. I asked them about the kitchen. They said, we have no idea about any kitchen. And I said, okay. And so then I asked them, I said, just curious, it was brought up about a $100,000 kitchen. They said, we can't use the kitchen that we have.
Sorry, I hate to laugh, but,
It's expectable, but.
no, it's hard to comment here because you're talking about like running narratives of conversations with employees and what people have said, and, there's wild inaccuracies almost every time you come in here. And most specifically, this kitchen piece, I was actually talking about, I got an outrageous quote for a kitchen for $100,000 personally, which of course I can't afford.
We were talking about out there is when you mentioned.
Yeah, and I think this
You
is.
didn't mention about your house.
This is a
so I
pattern. I
took it
think
as
everybody in
something-
here, the reason they're laughing is because they heard what I said and took
Yeah.
it one way, and you're taking it another, and it's
Well,
now
you
turned
didn't
into a
explain
story
this
which
to
doesn't
yourself.
exist, and that's the way you're characterizing a lot of other interactions and conversations,
Well-
which is, it's a view of it, it's not factual to reality, and,
I think we're in our.
yeah, and that's just, I'm happy to discuss or engage in conversations about reality, about conversations you've had, which you're giving inaccurate statements on.
Okay.
No. So,
That's all I want.
and be wary of contractors claiming they're gonna do your kitchen for $100,000, and maybe in Bar Harbor, but,
Yeah. All right, does anyone have anything else? No? Good, all right,
All right, thank you all.
thanks.
good weekend.